One.
Good evening and welcome to our virtual clinic on caregivers and rights for seniors. We welcome everyone joining us this evening on our Facebook Live. I want to do a brief introduction and welcome the South Florida Institute on Aging Director Rachelle Faublas. South Florida Institute on Aging is our guest host tonight, and Rachel in particular, so we're very, very happy to have her. We also have Jason Neufeld, who is with Elder Needs Law, an attorney, and he is giving us his time pro bono this evening to participate in this clinic. And I will also note that he is the May Attorney of the Month for Coast to Coast Legal Aid and Legal Aid Service of Broward County, because he is always giving us his time, and we truly, truly appreciate Jason being with us tonight as part of it. And we also have Katianna Mazard, our project director for the Senior Citizen Law Project at Coast to Coast Legal Aid. And we have a great program laid out for you that Jason and Kat have worked on to give as much information as possible. Just as a reminder, it is a Know Your Rights clinic. So they will be providing legal information, but not specific legal advice, because that would violate attorney-client privilege. So keep that in mind. If you have comments or questions, you can post those in the Facebook comment section, and we'll add those for the presenters to review to answer. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rachel so that she can give us some more information about the South Florida Institute on Aging and then start our program this evening. Rachel?
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachelle Faublas, and I am the SoFIACare Director at the South Florida Institute on Aging. We are celebrating our 55th year of providing service here in Broward County. Our focus is taking our seniors and servicing our elderly adults, social isolated seniors, caregivers, by helping them with training on technology, providing relief and caregiving services, helping children how to read and write and provide social and emotional support, also helping our seniors learn new training and helping them find jobs. So we have a plethora of programs. If you are interested and want to learn more, you can visit our website at thesofia.org. Our info email is also on our website, and you can give us a call at 954-484-7117. Thank you to Coast Legal Aid for having us and having me. I am excited, and we are going to start with Jason and ask some questions about power of attorney and surrogacy and things like that. So Jason, if you can answer and start answering, what is a power of attorney? We hear this all the time, but what is power of attorney?
It's a great question. You know, I do a lot of Medicaid planning and estate planning, and I like to say that of all the fancy trusts and planning that I do, a well-drafted, durable power of attorney is by far the single most important document that I can put together for a client. And the reason is, it is allowing my client the ability to say, while they have the ability to make decisions, who they want to make those decisions for them if they subsequently become incapacitated. And that's really, really powerful, because for people who don't have, either they have a poorly drafted power of attorney or they don't have a power of attorney at all, if they then become incapacitated and something needs to get done, their loved ones are then faced with a much more expensive and time-consuming guardianship process to do the very same thing that could have just been done if they had made their wishes known on this durable power of attorney.
Okay, awesome. So as far as the power of attorney, who should have a power of attorney? And does it have to be an attorney in order to have the power?
That's great, yeah, because it means right in the word, right? It's
yeah, it's right in the word, exactly.
That's an interesting question. No, the answer is, first of all, it's for anybody who is over the age of 18 that wants to designate someone else as their decision maker. It's for the person who is so the decision maker is usually referred to as the agent So if you sign a power of attorney designating me to be your decision maker, I would be your agent, or I would be what's known as the attorney in fact. So decision maker, attorney in fact, agent, I'll use those words interchangeably. They all mean the same thing. But that can be anybody over the age of 18, and that person does not need to be an attorney in order to qualify for that role.
Okay, that's awesome.
Mhm.
So for example, we get the power of attorney together, we have the designated person who would be the designated person to do that. What if something happens and that person I designated as my power of attorney is unable to fulfill that role? Is there something that I have to do? Can that be changed or adjusted?
Yeah. So when I am meeting with a client and we're talking about the power of attorney, that's one of the scenarios that we're always talking about, because you might have your first choice, but what if they become incapacitated, or what if they are abroad traveling and they're just not available when you need them to do something, or God forbid they pass away, right? These things happen. So you can designate what's called a successor agent. So if your first choice is not available for whatever reason, your second choice can sort of step into that position. If you haven't designated a successor agent, and they could be multiple agents, multiple successor agents. And if you kind of have exhausted that list, or you don't have anyone other than the one person you've initially designated, then you're back to square one, which is you are either going to sign a new durable power of attorney, putting someone else on, or if you're don't have the capacity to do that, you're back to going through the guardianship process.
Understood. Power of attorney is something that's new in my world as well, especially with my family and my parents who are getting older.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been hearing a lot of healthcare surrogate, and I don't know what the difference is, and then also why having a healthcare surrogate is important if I have a power of an attorney.
Yeah, it's a great question. So generally speaking, a power of attorney is really more for financial matters, signing contracts and entering into an agreements with other individuals. So it's typically you're using it to pay bills, to access bank accounts, to apply for government benefits, to even create trusts when necessary. It can do a whole bunch of different things depending on how you structure the document. You can, if you so choose, give your agent or power of attorney the ability to make medical decisions. It's not commonly done because what doctors are looking for is what you just said, which is they're looking for the healthcare surrogate designation, which really is the equivalent of a medical power of attorney. So the healthcare surrogate is, and the only difference between the two documents, I mean, practically speaking, is the power of attorney requires 2 witnesses and a notary, and the healthcare surrogate just requires the 2 witnesses. A notary is not specifically needed. So the healthcare surrogate is going to get into details as to what type of treatment you want your surrogate to be able to consent to, or refuse, or accessing your medical records. Those are the sorts of things that you're going to be putting into a healthcare surrogate designation that are probably not going to be in the durable power of attorney. The other main difference is a durable power of attorney must go into effect the day you sign it, meaning you can't say, I only want this power of attorney to be effective upon my being deemed incapacitated. Whereas with a healthcare surrogate designation, you have that option if you want. We can get into whether or not that's a good idea, but you can say, I only want this healthcare surrogate designation to be effective if a doctor deems me incapacitated to make my own decisions. And there's pros and cons to that, but those are the primary differences. So really, again, just to summarize very briefly, you can give your agent under a power of attorney the ability to make medical decisions. We typically don't advise that because we know that doctors and hospital systems are looking for the healthcare surrogate designation. That's where you want to get into all of that.
Okay. That's really good because you mentioned, the designation, like when you sign a power of attorney, it starts now,
right.
And it starts immediately. Do you have criteria on who you should designate as your healthcare surrogate?
Yeah, for both the durable power of attorney and the healthcare surrogate, I mean, you want to make sure it's a person who you trust. Now, always like to say a few things. With both these documents, just because you are designating someone else as your decision maker, whether it's medical or whether it's financial, it doesn't mean you yourself lose the ability to make decisions. Where if you are going to the doctor, whether you have a healthcare surrogate designation that's effective now or later, as long as you have the ability to speak and make your wishes known, whether it's physically, whether it's writing things down, whatever it is, as long as you have the ability to do that, you're in charge. They're never going to ask your surrogate for anything unless you're unconscious or you just can't communicate, right? You're in a coma, God forbid. That's when they're using that document. As long as you can talk, you're still in charge.
Okay, awesome. All that ties into a living will. I talk to my clients and their caregivers, especially when their loved one passes away, and they are trying to, figure out how to move forward. Losing a loved one is already stressful enough, right? But they say they didn't have a will, or I don't know where the will is. Right. So can you elaborate for us and explain what a living will is and what it does?
Well, you brought up two different concepts. So I want to make sure that we distinguish between the difference between a living will and a last will and testament, which have very similar sounding names. And so they're often confused, but they do two totally different things. So we'll go one by one. The last will and testament, so the last will, as opposed to the living will. The last will is you designating what happens to your stuff after you pass away. Your last will has no use as long as you're alive. It only comes into being. It only has any practical use. Other third parties will only accept it once the person who creates their last will and testament has already passed away. To contrast the last will and testament with the living will. The living will is a document that you put together that, very similar to the healthcare surrogate, it's dealing with your health decisions, except it's dealing with making your wishes known when you're really at the end of your life. And so the living will says, if you are in an end stage terminal condition in a persistent vegetative state, right? You have a medical condition for which doctors don't believe that you have any real likelihood of surviving and leading any kind of meaningful life, making any kind of recovery. What do you want to happen in that situation? And there's no judgment in terms of, I have some clients who say, I want my 5 minutes, meaning if you do whatever it is that you have to do to keep me alive, even if it's for another 5 minutes, go ahead and do that. The problem is that the end of life can be a very painful experience. And from what I've seen, most people don't want to leave this world that way, meaning to be intubated is a very painful procedure. Chest compressions, right? Cracking ribs on a 95-year-old frail individual might not make the most sense if there's really no likelihood of them coming out of that being able to live a life. So if you're in this end stage condition, a lot of people take the position, I want to go peacefully, just keep me out of pain and maybe keep me hydrated and keep me as comfortable as possible, but let me go. So that's the decision you're making when we're doing the last will, when we're executing a living will.
A living will. Okay.
And then after you pass away, what happens to your house and your bank account, that we're addressing in the last will and testament or a revocable living trust and documents like that.
Okay. And if I want to change my living will or make adjustments or remove, what can I do? What's the process?
Yeah, you execute a new document. So for the living will, so for the end of life decision making, you would go back to your attorney, or you can there are free forms available online through the state of Florida and the Florida Bar. They're very generic, but free is free, and I get that. And if you want to make a decision as to how you want to live or who you want to help make those end of life decisions, you certainly simply execute a new document. Again, a notary is not needed. It's 2 witnesses And one of the witnesses can even be your spouse or someone who's related to you. The second witness has to be someone completely independent, not your spouse, not someone you're related to by blood, but you, two witnesses, and you can change that document as often as you want.
Okay. As far as the healthcare decisions, spoke about healthcare surrogates.
Right.
Are there other surrogates, or do you recommend other designated a person or someone to be involved in your living will, power of attorney?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you can have a surrogate, but is there something else besides a healthcare surrogate, a living will, or a power of attorney that you recommend someone looking into?
You mean other people to help make those decisions? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, other people to help make those decisions,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I think a lot of people come and they think that they are restricted to using their, people go, oh, I guess my daughter, I have two kids, my son and my daughter ought to be the ones making my medical decisions and my financial decisions. And I always like to say they very well may be well qualified to do that, but maybe not, right? If you have one child who has a gambling problem, maybe that's not the person to be making your financial decisions for you. Or you might have another child who is very, very emotional and is never going to let you go, no matter how painful the end of life experience might be. That might not be the person to be your healthcare surrogate, or the one who's designated to help make those decisions under your living will. So you want to think about who really is qualified to do that. Now, some people have nobody that they really trust to make those decisions for them. And there are professionals that they can contract with to kind of step into that position if they want, or to have someone oversee the decisions that their designees are making.
Mm-hmm. Especially now with our pandemic and COVID-19, these topics may not be all rosy and fuzzy, but it's very serious. It's very important. Mm-hmm. If I'm a caregiver or a newly caregiver and I have my loved one, what is the time frame in order for me to get this started? What is your recommendation? How should I start? What should I do first? And so on.
Yeah, I think there's no time like the present, because you're healthy now, and God forbid you get sick tomorrow, and you're going to regret not having these documents in place. And especially with the healthcare surrogate designation, the living will, because you don't even need a notary to come to your house. You just need those two witnesses, one of them which can be related to you. They're easier documents to get done. So really, there's no excuse to not have them. With the help, especially in this coronavirus world that we're living in, what I've started doing with my documents is I'm putting in specific coronavirus language. Like, for example, your healthcare surrogate may not be able to go to visit the doctor in person, right? Because we're quarantined and they're not letting people into some of these facilities. So I'm making it very specifically clear in my documents that the doctor or medical facility is authorized to speak with the designated healthcare surrogate on a Zoom conference or through FaceTime, or whatever these devices are, alternative ways, so that people don't have to actually physically be there. And I'm putting in there, doctor, by the way, we're holding you harmless, meaning because if you rely on these in-person representations with your healthcare decision maker, then you don't have to worry about being sued, which some of these facilities have some concern about. The other thing that we're doing is with our living wills, a lot of people say, I don't want to be artificially kept alive. Well, being on a ventilator is being artificially kept alive. And while if you're in your 20s or 30s and you come down with coronavirus and you're put on a ventilator, that shouldn't invoke the living will, because the living will, remember, is only for end of life decisions. So no one should think of you as being at the end of your life in that situation. The concern I've gotten from some of my clients is, well, what if there aren't enough ventilators to go around? And they see in my document, which is like kind of the generic one that people are getting from the state, or if the lawyer's just not really putting a lot of thought into it, they all say, for the most part, don't put me on a ventilator. So for example, in my documents, and people can instruct by the, you don't have to come to me to do this. You can go to your own lawyer, or you can even handwrite it in yourself. Really, you can say, if it is suspected that I have coronavirus, COVID-19, or any related sort of disease, I want the ventilator. And only if it becomes abundantly clear that there's no hope for my recovery, then should I be taken off. And again, I don't even know that that's required, but it gives people a little sense of, they're not going to take the ventilator away from me and give it to someone else just because my document says I don't have it. So we're trying to adapt with the times.
Okay. We have a Facebook question, and Katianna, you can jump in if you would like. It says, does it make sense to have a primary and secondary power of attorney? And I know you mentioned this earlier.
I always encourage my clients to have a backup. And by the way, if you're not limited to choosing one person at a time, right? Some people have more than one child who they trust implicitly, and one child may live locally and the other child may live somewhere else. Well, it might make sense to put both children as what we call co-agents or co-attorney. And you can say, basically say the first one, that they don't have to consult with each other. The first one to get there can make the decision. And this protects, again, it just takes, I'm about taking away barriers to getting things done. Meaning if you list one person and then you have your successor, but the one person is traveling abroad, well, now you got to go through this whole like rigmarole of proving that they're not available and that the third party should be relying on this secondary person. So to avoid that, you can have them both be empowered to make decisions at the same time. So yeah, absolutely. At least have a backup, if not have co-attorneys, in fact, able to act simultaneously.
Yeah. Backups are important. I think now in this digital age, we're so used to having everything saved on our phone. Like right now, my phone has every document, but if something crashes on my iPhone and I don't have a backup, what are we going to do? So backup is very, very important. And
I just wanted to add to Jason's statement. It is important to have a backup because God forbid something were to happen where the primary agent on the power of attorney passes away, then it gives the power to the secondary.
Right.
mm-hmm.
A lot of times, especially right now, it's important for everyone to get their documents in order because no one knows what can happen at any time. And a lot of times we have clients that are coming to us last minute and want to get a power of attorney done. But if that individual, that senior or the elderly parent doesn't have capacity, we can't execute a durable power of attorney for them. So they're going to have to do what Jason mentioned earlier, is go to the courts to do a guardianship, which is a longer process. So they'll have to wait on that. And we've had caregivers call us last minute and say, my mom or dad is at this nursing home and they're in a coma and I need to pay for their facility, or I need to pay their mortgage. I need to be able to access their bank account so I can pay their mortgage or whatever expenses need to be paid, but they don't have that document. And now the senior is in a coma, senior can't execute a durable power of attorney or any other document to give them legal authority to act on their behalf. They're going to have to go through the longer process of getting a guardianship done.
The other thing that I want to point out is when it comes to living wills and healthcare surrogates, I'm not as concerned about the free forms, meaning I think for the most part, those free forms are fine and they will get the job done. Now, again, they may not have the, I authorize the doctor speak through Zoom and FaceTime, but that stuff is secondary and it by and large, it's an effective document. My larger concern is with the powers of attorney. A lot of the free documents I see online with the durable power of attorney are not good documents. And the reason for that is a lot of people are under the impression that you can just say, I, Rachelle, give my agent the ability to do everything as if they were me, so help me God, and they sign it, and that's that doesn't work in terms of there's no such thing as this blanket durable power of attorney. If the power that your attorney in fact is trying to utilize is not specifically mentioned in the document, they can't do it. And not only that, there are certain things, there are certain what we call superpowers with that regard, in regard to changing beneficiary designations and creating trusts and things like that, that if they're not specifically initialed in the right place, even if it's specifically mentioned, you also can't do it. So I'm a lot more concerned when people come to me and they go, I have this free power of attorney form I got off the internet. I go, okay, well, let's see what happens. So I caution people, get the power of attorney done properly.
I agree with Jason. We see it a lot in our unit, the senior law unit. So we have caregivers who come in, they say I have a power of attorney. The first thing we have to do, especially if the senior doesn't have capacity, they're not competent to be able to hire us for our services, we have to rely on the power of attorney. If the power of attorney is no good, meaning it doesn't say that it gives the agent the power to hire attorney, accountants, or whoever else that that the agent may want to hire on behalf of the principal, they're not going to be able to do it. So we've had to turn caregivers away because they have power of attorneys that were not valid.
Wow.
Excellent.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's very important to get your power of attorney done properly. Everything that needs to be in the power of attorney, everything that has any ownership, trust needs to be detailed. So the word here is detail. Your power of attorney needs to be detailed. I remember my first job, they said, dot your I's and cross your T's. And just to reiterate for those who are just joining our live or missed our conversation earlier, which documents need to be notarized? I know that Jason, you mentioned this earlier already. If you can just confirm with them.
Yeah, so really only the durable power of attorney of everything we've talked about has to be notarized. That doesn't mean that's a strict legal requirement, not necessarily what's ideally done. So an example is the last will and testament, right? Living will is end of life decisions. Last will and testament is who gets your stuff after you pass away. For the last will and testament, for a legally valid last will, that does not have to be notarized. However, what you will see with most wills is you have the signature page, which has the person signing it, and then 2 witnesses. Boom, that's valid, that's all you need. But then there is a follow-up page that's referred to as the self-proving affidavit. And that is where you have, essentially you have the testator, who's the person making the will, signing in front of the same 2 witnesses and a notary. And the reason why they do that, they call it a self-proving affidavit, is to avoid when the will is presented to the probate court. Because wills, by the way, are a one-way ticket to probate. That's okay. Revocable trust is how you avoid probate, and that's, I think, another conversation for another time. But when you have a will, you go to the probate court. But if you want to avoid having to drag the witnesses into court to actually say, yes, I saw this person sign the document and therefore it is valid, you have this self-proving affidavit, which is witnessed and notarized. And then once you present that to the court and it's accepted, then you don't have to do anything else. So again, you can have a legally valid document without the notary, but if you can get the notary, you want that just to save everyone some aggravation down the road.
Okay. So there was a question in regards to guardianship, and I know that Coast to Coast does not handle that, but Jason, if you can tell us, how can you get the guardianship process started and how involved is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation. It depends on the situation in terms of, is it a contested guardianship versus an uncontested guardianship? If it's simple, where nobody is going to really challenge you, the person's claiming the right to be your loved one's guardian, it's a fairly simple process. It still is somewhat time consuming, depending on if it's an emergency, then you can get it done very quickly. If it's not an emergency, you might be waiting some time. Certainly in this coronavirus environment where the courts are not moving as quickly as they were before, it might be taking a little bit longer. But in terms of it will get done. It's just a matter of, I don't want to say it'll get done in 2 weeks or a month, because again, courts are just acting a little bit differently these days, but it'll get done. It's not all that, the person's presented before a panel, they determine that they really are incapacitated. If they're not, because the courts don't want to grant guardianship if it's not absolutely necessary. Does the person need a temporary guardianship, or we call it a plenary guardianship, which is a full, kind of making decision for everything. So again, I think it's a little bit beyond this talk, but it's not very difficult to get started, is the short answer to the question.
Okay. So if there's anyone that's watching this live and wants more information on guardianship, you can hire an attorney. And also it sounds like it's depending on your situation, because every situation is different and everyone has, different things that they probably need to focus on.
Yeah, if they're indigent, I just want to point out, they may not necessarily need to hire an attorney. There are public guardianship programs that will do it for free for people who meet the financial qualifications. So that's a potential option as well.
So intergen meaning like a grandparent who's taking care of their grandchild.
Or vice versa. It could be the child.
Or vice versa.
Guardianship over their parent or grandparent, or vice versa.
Okay, great.
Sometimes they may have a waiting list because it is a public guardianship. So you just have to call and inquire.
Yes. Okay, awesome. That's great. We mentioned caregiving and caregivers during our talk so far. And I know that there is a caregiver supplemental program. So Katianna, can you give us more detail and overview of what the caregiver supplemental program is?
Yes, Rachel. Over at Coast to Coast Legal Aid, the Senior Law Project, we get funding from Older Americans Act, there's a process. So there's an organization. The Older Americans Act gets funding, and then it's submitted through the local Aging and Disability Resource Centers and the State Department of Elder Affairs. And then the funds are distributed to our office. And we provide services to caregivers free. We provide services to caregivers free of charge. The same services that we provide to seniors that are 60 and older.
Awesome. Who designates, or what designates a primary caregiver? Working with caregivers myself, you get like, well, I don't live with my mother, but I'm handling all the affairs, but my brother lives with her. Who would be the primary caregiver?
The primary caregiver can be the person who is like 18 and older and providing basically assisting the senior or the elderly person with their daily activities. So that's what they're looking at. So if the person is at the house doing the cleaning, doing the shopping, taking care of the senior, doing the supervision, they usually reside with the senior.
Okay. And in addition to that, I know DOA has their guidelines. Are there specific guidelines? Are there income guidelines that they need to qualify in order for this caregiver supplemental program?
Not for this program. For our seniors, we don't have an income guideline. So we have a process. They come into our office. If they say they're a caregiver, we will open a file. If they're already, we will check to see if the senior is already an ADRC, Aging and Disabilities Resource Centers search system. If they've already had an assessment done to determine that the senior is frail, then we'll go ahead and open a file that's free of charge and provide them with the little legal services that they need. If at the time they're referred to our office or they contact our office, there is no assessment that has been done of the senior, we will refer the caregiver to the local Aging and Disability Resource Center to contact them so that they can do the assessment of the senior, and it's free of charge.
Okay, that's awesome. And Jason, you can come in as well, or you can add, through this COVID-19 pandemic, what is the most important thing that caregivers should know as their legal rights, especially if they have loved ones in ALFs and they're not, near or living in the same household? What is the most important for them to know their legal rights during this COVID-19 pandemic?
First, if they have power of attorney and healthcare surrogate designated to them, then these facilities have to deal with them, have to answer their questions. They have to write the check-in on their loved one. Another way that I try to help and benefit caregivers is, powers of attorney, living wills, last wills, that's really all falls under the category of estate planning. Mm-hmm. Another area that I practice in is referred to as Medicaid planning, where essentially I take people who have too much by way of income or assets. I can protect those assets and still get them qualified for Medicaid so they don't have to lose everything. And one of the ways we do that is, we have a lot of ways, but specific to caregivers, is we have a device known as a personal services contract, where the idea with Medicaid is you have to have below $2,000 in assets, and you can't give anything away. If you just give money away to your son or your daughter or your friend, you will be disqualified from Medicaid for a period of time. And Medicaid will pay for some home health care, part of an assisted living facility bill, and the entirety, or near the entirety, of a skilled nursing facility. So it has really these really nice, valuable benefits. For the people who don't naturally qualify, we can pay their loved ones who are already doing these things for free, typically, right? A lot of times you have kids who are taking care of their elderly mother, father, grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever it is. And they're doing it out of love, and they're not doing it expecting to get paid. But because we have this problem of their loved one not naturally qualifying for these valuable long-term care benefits, we can pay the people who are already taking care of them, because the law doesn't require them to do these things for free. So it's a really nice way, because a lot of the times you have these caregivers and it's their second job. I mean, or they have to give up their job because taking care of their loved one is so time consuming. So it's nice if we can get them paid for that position beyond what Medicaid might pay them. It's a nice service. They can at least live their life and feel good about taking care of their loved one without, losing all other aspects of their life. So it's a very nice service.
Awesome. That sounds great. We have a Facebook question, and it asks, how do caregivers get legal documents in order for their parent if they are low income? Does CCLA assist with this, coast to coast?
Yes, we do. So we provide these services free of charge to the caregivers. So the caregiver in this case would be our client. Because if the caregiver needs to get his or her own power of attorney, we can assist them with getting his or her own power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, and also a living will. We don't do last will testament, so you can contact Jason or a private attorney if you need a will done. But for some of these other services, you can contact our office and we can assist the caregiver with those documents. But it'll be services. Those documents will be for the caregiver. If the senior is the one that needs those documents, we can prepare those documents for the senior also.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. And in regards to long-term care and ALF facilities, what are the legal rights for caregivers and loved ones when it comes to their family in that facility? So for example, we know that these facilities have strict visitation. Some of them are not allowing families to come in because of this pandemic. Are there any legal rights that the family may have in order to visit them while they're in the facility?
It's tough because we understand that the facility, we're dealing with that a lot now. We understand that facilities have an interest in making sure that no one else gets sick. So people who are potential carriers of coronavirus, they don't want in their building. And we have to balance that with the we have elderly people who have not seen their family members in some time, and they're lonely and they're growing despondent, and it really is negatively impacting their life. There are supposed to be, in the next week or two, new guidelines coming down from the governor's office, and this is really being advanced by the skilled nursing facility lobbying groups to try to say, hey, we have loved ones who are trying to get in here. We want to make sure that we do that without jeopardizing the health of our patients. So you're starting to see just now, restrictions lightening up and visitors being allowed entrance. But in terms of when things are going to go back to normal, I just don't have a good answer for that. We're hoping to get more guidance in the next couple of weeks.
We're hoping we can go back in there because we have a lot of clients that are in assisted living facilities and nursing homes. They'll contact us via phone and then we'll go in and see them. But right now we're doing everything over the phone because we can't get into those nursing facilities either.
Yeah. So just, for everyone, I think it's daunting when you have your family in there and you can't see them. And I know that it's a lot, but it's really for the safety of everyone to make sure that we're all safe and we are following everything properly. So keep up to date. Jason mentioned the governor's office is bringing more information. So keep up to date what we're doing. Things are opening back up. There are new guidelines that just came out on Monday. they are available for you to look at and follow with that. Are there any other resources in the community that Jason and Katianna that you can think of that are also available for caregivers that we haven't spoken about today?
I can say, like with our office, not only do we assist caregivers with advanced directives, we also provide assistance in different areas. The same areas we assist seniors in, housing issues, they're like renting, landlord-tenant situation, or there's Section 8. If they have a foreclosure, or they receive documents from their lender and they have questions about it. Condo associations, HOA issues. We also assist with health issues, including Medicare and Medicaid, food stamp assistance. We get clients that say, well, I've been denied, or the caregiver said, I applied and I was denied and I want to know why. We assist with that also. We also provide assistance with abuse and exploitation. Sometimes it's not the caregiver, it's the senior who's being taken advantage of. And we have, so one sibling is saying, my sister is taking advantage of my mom, and there's a durable power of attorney that I want canceled. So sometimes it puts us in a really difficult place, and we have to make what's the best decision that's for the senior, because the senior is going to be our client, and we have to see what the senior wants to do. And it's hard. Sometimes you don't know who's we call them good son or bad son, good daughter, bad daughter. So you have to have several meetings with the client and get information to try to determine who's really acting on the best interest of the senior, or do they want the senior because it's a paycheck that they're going to get to manage their Social Security money and use that money to pay their bills. So we want someone that's going to really care about the need of the senior, make sure that the senior has a roof over their head. Like Jason said earlier, you don't want to give power of attorney to someone who has a gambling problem or a drug problem. Sometimes we've had to go into our client's home if we suspect there's like abuse and financial exploitation. We may have to take action against that individual or find ways to remove the senior from that home to protect them if they're being abused and financially exploited. So we take our job very seriously, but we are also here to help the caregiver and also the senior to make sure that they're getting their needs met.
I want to piggyback with one thing that Katianna said, which is, if you determine that the person you designated as your healthcare surrogate or your agent under the power of attorney is not the right person to be making those decisions, it's not good enough to just change the documents, although that's essential.
Yeah.
So remember that these documents are only as good as the third parties who have them. So what I mean by that is, not only is it, do you do a new durable power of attorney, but you then send that to the bank and say, by the way, my brother is no longer able to make decisions for me. Please do not talk to him anymore. Now your new point of contact is this new person. So I just wanted to state that.
Yeah. That's so true. We get clients, seniors who come in, they're like, I want to revoke the power of attorney, or the caregiver that comes in and said, I want to revoke, cancel out that power of attorney and get a new power of attorney done, because they feel that the person who is the agent on the power of attorney is taking advantage or misappropriating funds. So we see it all the time.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more elaboration, Katianna. You mentioned that the good son, bad son situation. If the senior does not have the mental capacity to make that decision, right? They have dementia, they're getting older. What do you do, or what does Coast to Coast do next when you do have that situation?
Well, if the senior does have dementia, it depends how severe. So we have a series of questions we will ask our clients to determine if they have capacity. So if they do not have capacity, make this decisions on their own, and we see that they are being abused or financially exploited, we have a legal responsibility to contact adult and protective services, because we want them to go in and investigate on behalf of the senior. They collect information and documents. We have cases all the time. I have one right now. So it's like you have to contact them. You have that obligation, make the report if you truly believe that this person is being financially exploited and they can't do anything for themselves. So we would get them involved.
I also like to every once in a while I will file a case with Adult Protective Services, even if we're not sure that the senior is being taken advantage of, but they suspect it. And the reason why is because A, if they're doing nothing wrong, then they're doing nothing wrong. But B, I think when you notify the potential wrongdoer that they are on a list, that their name is now with an authority, then I think they're less likely to perpetrate whatever it is they were doing, or maybe they know that if something does come to light, or if they do have a need to do something in the future, that there's now a record of them being a suspect. So I just like to throw that out there too.
Yeah. And we like to put that obligation on Adult Protective Services so they can do the investigation and they make their determination. So we feel a little bit relieved once it's in their hands. Sometimes, but we always want to be careful because we also believe in our clients being independent. So if we know something that maybe at the end of their investigation, they might find that if the caregiver is gonna, a lot of times we find our clients, they don't want to report their son or daughter because of what they're doing, because they know if they do report the son or daughter, they're going to end up in a nursing home and they don't want to be in a nursing home. So a lot of times they'll just deal with it because once they know, okay, I'm going to be in a home and I don't want to be in a home. This is the only person I have to take care of me. So I'm going to deal with it. And so it can be really difficult because our hands are tied if our clients are saying they don't want this individual to be reported because that's their son or daughter and they don't want them to get in trouble.
Absolutely.
Caregiver does have a responsibility to the senior. So if you're the caregiver, you're responsible for taking care of that senior because Adult Protective Services can come and do an examination or an inspection. They come in. If the senior is being neglected, that individual can be in trouble. So yeah, just want to be careful.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have a Facebook question. What if the senior is not listening to caregiver trying to help them? What can the caregiver do to be sure that the senior is cared for in the best way?
Go ahead, Katianna.
You know how much clients tell us all the time, I don't want you to help me. You don't know what you're talking about.
Same thing. Yep. Same thing. We've experienced that. Yeah.
It's hard. I guess it would depend on what it is that you're trying to explain to the senior. If the senior doesn't want to listen, it's something about medical health. They may want to talk. If they trust their doctor, you may want to talk to the doctor for the doctor to relay the information. If it's something that's legal, you could always contact our office and for us to explain something to them. If it's something that's very serious and they're not listening. Everything else, I think with the caregivers, with seniors, they get older. It gets more difficult. They don't believe anything. They don't trust anyone. And they might not trust you after a while. And it's not their fault. It's because, as they get older, things are different, especially some of our clients who have dementia. They can be difficult with us and it's really hard. So it requires a lot of patience. I have a lot of patience. Sometimes I just sit and I'll just listen. And then I say, I understand, and just try to talk to them and explain it to them the best that I can.
Yeah, and also you have to keep in mind that as long as they have their mind, as long as they are able to make decisions for themselves, people have the right to make bad decisions. And people saying, I have my grandfather goes to the racetrack and he's losing all his money. I go, well, are you going to go after? Is he a candidate for guardianship? And the answer is no. He can drive, he can make decisions, and he just has a problem. But that's not. Sometimes there's just nothing to do but let the person make those bad decisions. You can't just take away their rights because you don't like what they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like some of our volunteers who are seniors, they say once an adult, twice a child. It's kind of like you're going back to raising your child, right? When you had a teenager or a young adult, you couldn't stop them from doing things. You could just try your best to lead them in the right direction. Another thing, as far as for myself and our SoFIA programs and our staff, when we bring volunteers in the home for relief for our caregivers and the loved one is completely adamant, like, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to do anything. What we do is say, okay, we're not here for you. We're here for your loved one. We're here for your daughter. We're just sitting here to talk, and doing that on a consistent basis, they start getting more adapted and they get more welcoming, and they understand, because now they don't feel that that person's here for you, right? It's not me. I'm not the one with the problem. I'm not the one with the issue. You're here for her. And now I see you attached with this person, or my loved one, or my caregiver. I can build some trust and reputation. So maybe try that. You know, we have access now to have care during through virtual, through phone, through FaceTime, through the computer. So we can take little steps. And I think that's been successful for us at SoFIA. And maybe that's something that can be done for a caregiver who has a difficult senior. Go ahead.
I just want to add, prior to COVID, there are caregivers support group meetings. So I used to go to them. That's how I used to go there and talk to the caregivers and let them know that we have these services available to them in the community for free. So at those meetings are usually very helpful to the caregivers. So the local senior centers have these groups available. Broward County Elderly and Veteran Services, they have them, I believe they have them like sometimes twice a month. I don't know if they're doing them virtually, but you could definitely reach out to your local senior center and see if they're doing them via Zoom now. But they're there to support the caregivers that are having a difficult time with the seniors. But one of the things I will say about caregivers, you still have to make time to take care of yourself, because it's overwhelming. So that's why we're coming and letting you know these services that we offer to you for free, or Jason, he's in private practice, he charges, but it's to make things a little bit easier on you. So you don't have to wait until something bad happens to the senior or to yourself to try to get these legal documents or seek legal assistance. So these services are available to you, and we want you to feel a little bit more relaxed. So we get free funding to help you, and also take the time for yourself. You know, I know right now we're stuck at home with, you know, our loved ones. If you're there, maybe go on YouTube or somewhere where you can listen to some mindful meditation, or go outside for a walk. Take some time for yourself and have a backup. Not only have a backup when you get a durable power of attorney or healthcare surrogate, have someone that could step in so you can take a break and get a breather, because you know you're about to lose it. I've been to caregiver support group meetings. I met this lady, she was really nice, and all I could do was hug her. She was so overwhelmed. Dealing with like her elderly father who had Alzheimer's. So they don't want to put their family members in a home. They want to take care of them, but our caregivers have to remember to take care of themselves also.
That's so important, because we see that all the time with caregivers. And another thing is asking for help when you need it. That is the biggest thing. I feel so just down when I get a caregiver who literally is at their last win, and they tried everything that they can, and they wait till they are depleted to ask for help. Ask for help now. And sometimes
resources available.
Exactly, there are resources available. And also I you know, tell my caregivers, and I tell caregivers who call us from the community, you know, you will be surprised how many of people around you who are willing to help you if you ask. You know, I think we so worry about being a burden, but that burden gets all on you. And if you aren't right, if you don't have self-care mentally, emotionally, and physically, you can't give the best care to your loved one. I know that majority of caregivers want to be in charge of their loved one's care. They don't want to put them you know, in a home, or, you know, they're concerned of how they will be treated. But if you're not treating yourself right, you can't treat your loved one right. So ask for help. Self-care is the best care. It may sound selfish, but it's not. And ask for help when you need it. Don't wait till you are at your last end to ask for help. Ask for help now. Get involved in these services. There's Area Agency of Broward County, which is formerly ADRC. Coast to Coast is a great organization. South Florida Institute Agent SoFIA is so lucky to be working with you guys. There is Broward County Elderly Veteran Services, Lighthouse of Broward. There are so many great organizations across Broward County who are here to help and here to provide free help if they can. So get the help that you need, do your research. If you need any questions, we are here to answer them. We're here to help you and relieve you. And yeah, that's so important. Jason, did you have something to say? I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, you guys are covering it all, but I would like to add that it's not being utilized so much now with everyone quarantined, but there are respite care services available for free if you're Medicaid eligible, and through some of these other organizations. adult daycare services. Again, it doesn't have to be an all the time thing, but just to give the caregiver a little bit of a break to do their own thing. And, you know, I think all that stuff is very important to take advantage of.
And SoFIA has a respite care program. It's called Rapid Response. And what we focus on are high priority clients. And we try to pair a home health aide in the home to provide companion care on for temporary purposes. So normally about 3 to 4 months on average. And definitely during this time, even though our volunteer services have been suspended, our volunteers are still communicating with our clients through phone. But during this time, there are a lot of caregivers and a lot of seniors and older adults who, you know, can't leave the house because they need someone to watch them so they can go get groceries, or they just need a break. So we are also offer those services. So if you would like more information, you can go to our website, you can give us a call, and you can look into that and see what's best for you. Yes, that's great. It looks like we don't have any more questions. I don't think yep, we don't. So thank you so much, Jason and Katianna, for your knowledge, your expertise, for giving us all this great information. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And oh, there's Alicia.
Come back in, magic,
Close
right?
us out, Alicia. Close us out.
That was a lot of really great information for seniors, for caregivers, and just legal information overall. So I want to thank Rachel for being an awesome guest host tonight, and for South Florida Institute on Aging for being a part of this with Coast to Coast Legal Aid in our virtual clinic series. And Jason, thank you again for donating your time. As always, you're so generous to our clients and with us, answering questions and everything. So thank you for being a part of it. And Kat, I know how busy you are, so thank you for giving your time as well for it. And for anyone watching, whether it was live or you catch it later, please be sure to share it with anyone you may know who may be interested. Please like and follow our Facebook page because we're doing these virtual clinics ongoing right now. So follow us on there for more information about them, as well as our Fridays with Friends, where we catch up with other community partners just to put out community information there. But thank you all, and that's the end of the clinic for the evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.